Hello viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jaffrey with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with Sri Lanka, where after months of deliberation and consultation, the government has finally signed a 99-year agreement of selling a significant stake in strategic Hambantota port to a state-run Chinese company. Sri Lanka has leased this port as it struggled to repay Chinese loan.
The deal is finally done. After prolonged negotiations and deliberations, Sri Lanka signed a $1.1 billion deal with China to lease its Hambantota port to Chinese merchant port holdings. The deal was signed between Sri Lanka's Minister of Ports and Shipping, Mahinda Samarasinghe, and China's envoy to Colombo, Yi Xianliang. Colombo has assured New Delhi that the Hambantota port would not be used by China for military use and the Chinese activities would be only commercial.
අස්සං කරන්න නියමිත ඒ ගිවිසුම හරහා රටේ ආර්ථිකය විශාල වශයෙන් ශක්තිමත් කිරීමක් හැටියට ආයෝජනයක් ගෙන එන්න අපේ රජයට හැකියාව ලැබීම පිළිබඳ.
Hambantota port is located on the southwestern coast of Sri Lanka, overlooking the Indian Ocean, and falls on the route connecting Southeast Asia with Africa and West Asia. China has been keen on acquiring this port for several years. Sri Lanka built Hambantota port with an investment of $286 million, worsening its debt figures. But the port did not attract much international traffic. The money from the deal will help Sri Lanka repay foreign loans. For China, the port forms an important link in its One Belt, One Road initiative. China calls OBOR the new Silk Route, linking important ports and cities between China and Europe.
This will make sure the Hambantota port will achieve a dual status as a gateway to the expanding economies of South Asia and the African region, where we have the similar layouts. With these maritime infrastructure investments and other diverse investments, such as in the future, the proposed International Maritime Center, Sri Lanka will be well positioned to play a strategic role in the One Belt, One Road initiative.
The pact signed last year sparked widespread public anger as Chinese control of the port, which included a plan for a 99-year lease of 15,000 acres to develop an industrial zone next door, raised fears that the port could be used for Chinese naval vessels.
Hambantota port deal has come as an extension of what is being termed as China's debt trap diplomacy. To talk more on Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean, we have former Indian ambassador to Sri Lanka, Nagendranath Jha, who carries deep insights into Sri Lankan geopolitics. Mr. Jha, do you believe that revised deal in any manner is going to impact the plans of China, which has lately been termed expansionist by international media?
The revised deal has two important clauses attached to it, which we signed only a few days ago, as you may have seen. One is that the Chinese company will operate it, and it will be divided into two for purely commercial purposes. And the non-commercial purposes, if any, such as a Chinese submarine coming and berthing there, Chinese warship coming there, etc., will be handled, will be looked after by the Sri Lankan government, and that too upon advance intimation to them and permission being approved by them. So this is certainly an improvement on the previous situation. As Chinese expansionism under the present precedent of China, I'm afraid this is being implemented in a very gradual way through controlling each country wherever they are coming, especially with the OBOR, and giving generous loans and all that. They have plenty of money to throw around, generous loans. Making them a kind of a vassal state like Pakistan is rapidly becoming. And even the ones in Africa will find it difficult to repay on schedule. So Chinese expect to have approach to the facility they're putting up there or anything else which they want to of their choice.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. Moving on to Afghanistan, where the violence continues to escalate. In two major incidents, the terrorists attacked the Iraqi Embassy in Kabul and a Shi'ite Mosque in Herat city, which led to the death of many civilians. We have a report.
A suicide attack at a packed Shia mosque in the western Afghan province of Herat killed more than 29 people and wounded more than 64. The attack took place in the middle of evening prayers when the mosque was packed with about 300 worshippers. Shia Muslims are a persecuted minority in Afghanistan and have been threatened by the affiliate of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, also known as ISIS, group that operates in the country's east. This incident came 2 months after an attack on a 12th century mosque known as the Jammu Masjid in Herat, in which 7 people died.
مردم برای بار بسته که یک نفر از داره که می‌بینی که شکسته کجا مولای امام نزدیک‌تره بعد از چند تا فیرک 2 تا 3 تا نارنجک انداختن بعد از نارنجک 2 تا نارنجک بالا جا خانم‌ها انداختن چند تا خانم زخمی شدن
به صورت به تفنگ بالی مردم فیر کردن تو هر چی که تونستن حدود 5 دقیقه بالی مردم هم فیر بعد از اینکه مرمیای نخلاص شد باز 100 تا 4 تا نارنجک انداختن بعد از هم یک انفجار مهیبی از آخر شد که من خود من نفهمیدم که انتحاری بود یا به همه چیزی.
In capital Kabul, the Islamic State claims to have attacked the Iraqi Embassy, in which 2 Afghan workers were killed. On July 31, the attackers entered the grounds of the embassy after a suicide bomber blew himself up at the entrance gate. Afghan security forces confronted 3 gunmen for hours before the Interior Ministry announced in the mid-afternoon that the attack in a normally busy business district of the capital had been suppressed. The embassy building, partly blackened by smoke and flames from the fighting, was damaged, but otherwise the impact from the attack was relatively limited compared with other recent attacks in Kabul.
خوشبختانه در گام نخست ما مرحله تخلیه دیپلمات‌ها را آغاز کردیم که سفیر، معاون سفیر و تعداد از دیپلمات‌ها به یک جای امن انتقال شدند. خوشبختانه به هیچ کدامش آسیبی نرسیده. تنها از بخش کارگرای یا کارمندای خدماتی سفارت، یک خانم و یک هموطن دیگه ما که هر دویش افغان هستند به اثر حمله وحشیانه تروریست‌ها به شهادت میرسند.
According to United Nations, about 220 people were killed in the first 6 months of this year in Kabul. There were more than 1,000 total casualties over the period, 25% more than the same period last year.
The security situation in war-torn Afghanistan is really grim. Let's talk about the issues concerning people of Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Part of the erstwhile princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, the region has a prime minister and president, but they have no powers. Kashmiri activists say that Islamabad considers the territory as its property and the local residents its slaves.
Pakistan-administered Kashmir, also known as Azad Kashmir, is politely administered by Islamabad since 1947. The territory has a parliamentary form of government with its capital located at Muzaffarabad. It has its own president and prime minister, supported by a council of ministers. However, all powers including finance and military remain with Pakistan Ministry of Kashmir Affairs, chaired by the Pakistani Prime Minister. Both Nawaz Sharif's disqualification by the country's top court, Prime Minister of Pakistan-administered Kashmir, Raja Farik Haider, warns that Kashmiris have to rethink on whether or not to align with Pakistan in the future.
ये जोन पर निजामत है यही है पाकिस्तान इसका कायद-ए-आज़म का ख्वाब और पाकिस्तान का इसका इलामा इकबाल का ख्वाब मुझे सोचना पड़ेगा वैसे कश्मीरी कि मैं किस मुल्क के साथ अपनी किस्मत को जोड़ अगर यही है इसका इलामा इकबाल का और उसका कायद-ए-आज़म का पाकिस्तान जो है
Kashmiri leaders belonging to Jammu Kashmir National Independence Alliance held a conference in Leeds and supported Haider's statement against Pakistani occupation. Talking about the plight of the local residents in the occupied territory, they asserted that Islamabad cannot keep the region enslaved under its illegal rule.
मुझे इंतहाई दुख होता है कि पहले दिन से पाकिस्तान गैर कानूनी, गैर आईनी और गैर इखलाकी हरकत करता है और रियासत जम्मू कश्मीर को और पाकिस्तान ने हमेशा अपनी जागीर समझा है। मैं आपके तवस्सुत से ये वाज़ह कर देना चाहता हूँ पाकिस्तान के तमाम शहरियों को, पाकिस्तान के तमाम सियासतदानों को और पाकिस्तान के तमाम मीडिया एंकर्स को हम ये बता देना चाहते हैं कि हम किसी के गुलाम नहीं हैं।
पाकिस्तान के जो सियासी जमातें हैं जिन्होंने एक ऐसे इलाके में जो पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा नहीं है, मेरी मुराद आज़ाद कश्मीर और गिलगित बल्तिस्तान से है, वहाँ पर जो सियासी जमातों की शाखें बनाई गई हैं, मैं समझता हूँ कि ये भी ड्रामा अब ख़त्म होना चाहिए और उनको अपनी ये जो दुकानें उन्हें वहाँ खोली हैं और जिस तरह से वहाँ पर लूट मार का बाज़ार गर्म किया जाता है।
Pakistan-administered Kashmir is a resource-rich region, but due to Islamabad's discriminatory policies, the locals are living a miserable life. The region remains underdeveloped as people have no jobs and facilities like healthcare and education. The political instability in Pakistan has created an atmosphere of fear among the locals.
Pakistan rules these territories as its colonies where human rights violations are widespread. Moving on to Maldives, where political turbulence has touched a new high. In latest turn of events, soldiers barred the main opposition Maldivian Democratic Party (MDP) from entering the heavily guarded parliament complex. My colleague Anindya Das Gupta spoke to Smruti Patnaik to get an insight into the situation.
Ms. Patnaik, my first question is, the Yamin government is accused of destabilizing the democratic institutions. How serious do you think that the situation is out there?
I think politically Maldives is going through a serious political turbulence. As you know, this is one of the country which in last 5 to 7 years have transited to democracy. So I think it is going through a greater political turbulence, and as I see the opposition, even if they want to garner strength and oppose the current government, the government is not leaving any stones unturned by using both the judiciary. There are certain restrictions on the media already, and then it used the Maldives National Defence Force to protect the parliament in the name of saying that there was this possibility of violence and terrorism in the parliament, and that is one of the reasons why they called the the military forces to come in. So I think the situation is very, very grim from the point of view of democracy.
Now ma'am, both India and Maldives are members of the SAARC, and as the opposition in Maldives demand that the Indian government intervenes in this matter, what do you think of this situation?
Look, I think it is difficult for India to intervene in any manner on something which is very, very internal. And second issue is that the government's hold is almost complete. It is, I would say, it is much more dictatorial in its policies. Like if you see the manner in which the judiciary and the security forces have been used to bring in criminal charges. 2 of the former vice president are arrested and put in jail. Like as you know, the former opposition leader was in jail, but he managed to leave for London because of international pressure. And also at the same time, there are various charges which has been brought against not just the opposition, but people within the ruling party who are opposed to the current regime, Yamin's regime. So therefore, I think in this context it becomes very difficult for India to any way to intervene in a meaningful manner.
First execution in 60 years are imminent right now, and there are serious questions which are being raised about the case. Do you think this is just a method of diverting the issue from the current crisis?
It could be, but the moratorium on this execution has been lifted by the government, and I see it from a larger political context, not about this particular execution which is supposed to happen on a murder case. I think the manner in which criminal charges has been brought against some of the opposition political leaders, and also at the same time some of the political leaders have been convicted by the judiciary, which is politically biased, against conspiring to kill Yamin when the bomb blast happened in the boat in which he was travelling. So I think from the larger political context, if this is going to happen, the problem is this, that it may be used against the opposition in the future. So, I think the concern is much more how the government is going to use these the death sentences, and whether it will be used to silence the opposition, which is very, very critical of him, because many of the charges are also terrorist related charges, which are serious crime, not politically it bars you from contesting the election, but also otherwise.
And finally, Ms. Patnaik, Maldives is a tourism based economy. How much do you think this current crisis will affect the tourism?
I think the political instability leads to much more chaos and violence. It will definitely affect the tourism industry. What has happened now, the contestation between the opposition and the ruling party actually has not impacted so much on the tourism industries, because there has not been the kind of political violence which one sees in other places. So, therefore, at the moment I do not see the tourism industry getting affected, but definitely if the opposition does not get any kind of space, political space to protest or to register its opposition to the government either in the parliament or outside, I think it may lead to some sort of violence, and if there is any kind of violence and chaos, I am sure that it will affect the tourism industries in Maldives.
Now, let's talk about Nepal, where the Rashtriya Janata Party-Nepal has been deliberating over its participation in the third phase of the local body elections. Party is also exploring different ways to exert pressure on government to get their demands fulfilled.
Accusing the government of failing to address its demands, including an amendment in the constitution, leaders and activists of Rashtriya Janata Party-Nepal staged a demonstration against the government in Birganj. Leaders maintain that Deoba government has been indifferent to the plight of Madhesis and has not moved ahead in finding a solution to Madhesi issues.
चाहे दलित हो, मुस्लिम हो, जनजाति हो, चाहे पहाड़ी समुदाय हो, चाहे मधेसी समुदाय हो, हर समुदाय को जनसंख्या के अनुपात में हर निकाय में, चाहे वो शिक्षा हो, स्वास्थ्य हो, चाहे न्यायालय हो, चाहे प्रशासन सेवा हो, सेना हो, प्रहरी हो, हर निकाय में जनसंख्या के अनुपात में उसको प्रतिनिधित्व कराया जाएगा.
In another significant event, office bearers and prominent leaders of Rashtriya Janata Party, Nepal, an amalgamation of 6 Madhes-based parties, congregated in Kathmandu to discuss the future of the party. The agenda of the meeting was to take a call on the party's participation in the third phase of the local elections and to further strategize the demand of constitution amendment, which Madhes leaders have been seeking since the promulgation of the constitution in September 2015. As many as 134 members present at the venue also discussed about the portfolio and the hierarchy row over which party appears to have been breaking up, with Tarai Madhes Democratic Party leader Hridesh Tripathi threatening to form a separate party of his own.
Meanwhile, there was peaceful conduct of polling in Bharatpur metropolitan city after Supreme Court upheld the decision of Election Commission, which said that 90 ballots allegedly torn by CPN-ML cadre. To understand the present situation in the Madhes region, we are joined by Anil Kumar Jha, a leader of the RJPN. Mr. Jha, please tell our viewers whether RJPN is going for the elections or not.
No, it's not possible. Out of 7 state provinces of Nepal, 6 have already election, and RJP didn't went in these elections. That's why there is no any change in the status of constitution or the decisions made by government. That's why the demands, the agendas in which RJP stands is it not clarified by parliament or the government. That's why we are in the same status in which 3 months earlier. That's why it's not possible for RJP in this status quo to go for the third phase of election in province number.
CPN Maoist Center has said that it will form an alliance with the RJPN in the elections. Is it true that you're forming a pre-poll alliance?
No, there is not any understanding or alliance yet. Of course, Maoist Center is also aware about the social inclusion of the underprivileged caste community area and etc. That's why they are, I think, thinking about. But RJP Nepal is not going to join the election or going to boycott the election. That's why in this condition, when RJP Nepal is not joining the election, how RJP Nepal can have any alliance with anyone, including Maoist center.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. Moving on, Indian capital New Delhi, where top fashion designers from across the country exhibited finest of their creations in the Indian Couture Week 2017. The silhouettes flew and embroidered capes added to the feminine ennui of style. Detailed embroideries added a sense of artful charm to the clothes.
A collection of white dresses embellished with intricate silver, gold and mirror work, dresses in shades of pale pink, teal, blue and bright yellow garments with contrasting purple embroidery work from designer Rahul Mishra cast a spell on the audience present to witness the 10th Indian Couture Week. Titled Parizad or Born of Divinity, Mishra's collection was dominated by fresh designs, patterns of mosaic, chevrons, spandrels and hand embroidery work.
This collection, India Couture Week collection, is called Parizad. Parizad means something which is out of heaven, something which is born out of divinity. So this collection we started working with, we started doing a complete ideation where the inspiration comes from Islamic art. But at the same time we try to give a very signature Zen kind of feel to that. A very lightweight, feather-light feel. Think like details which are inspired from monuments, but the outcome is very feather-light.
Fashion designer Anita Dongre added an extra bit of glamour to the Indian Couture Week as she showcased her nature-inspired Tree of Love collection. The resplendent bridal collection drew inspiration from the Bishnoi tribe living in northwestern Rajasthan state, who over the centuries have nurtured and protected the forests and the wildlife. The collection featured embroidered tabards, styled with tulle skirts and hand-embroidered tea-length dresses and lehengas in hues of blue, rich maroons, inky black and emerald green.
So it was called Tree of Love, and it was actually just, the tree was to me and my inspiration, and also it was a tribute to the Bishnoi tribe who always worshipped nature and truly done everything to protect nature.
Bollywood stars Alia Bhatt and Ranveer Singh spread royalty on stage as they walked down the ramp for ace designer Manish Malhotra at the finale of the Couture Week. Actress looked like a princess as she sashayed down the ramp in a beige and silver ensemble with a long trail. Singh owned the house with his flamboyance in an embroidered navy velvet sherwani paired with a sleek pair of microcheck trousers.
I just think that because there's so much embroidery, there's a lot of pearl work, there's a lot of zari work and a lot of thread work in this collection, lace and tulle, and we've kind of reinvented our can-cans, and they are different. We made cages under the skirt where the girls could walk and it doesn't come in their way, and so many things.
From the color palette and the meticulous detailing to the softness of the drapes, each element was mindfully constructed to weave together subtle nuances of legacy with the intricacy of couture recreating a bygone era. The collection focused on luxury and volume and noble fabrics that added a sensuous feeling to the garments.
Indian fashion has carved a niche for itself in the world market with the kind of ethereal as well as royal designs it has added to the wardrobe. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.